Hello, my name is Jay Kim. I'm an ODF certified instructor. This video is a collaborative effort between the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and our fishing club to offer workshops that help beginners and rookies to learn how to catch perch. We have level 1 workshops already in progress, and we have helped quite a few beginners who have never even perch fished or been in the ocean before catch their first perch. We would like to start offering a level 2 workshop, which I'll explain what it is in a second. My big disclaimer is this is all my personal opinion. The objective of all our workshop is really just to help anglers. But this workshop is not for anglers who have never surf fished before. That would be a level 1 workshop. This is for anglers who have had difficulties catching surf perch, even they've been out a couple times. So all participants must be able to cast a reasonable distance time after time for several hours, walk 2 to 5 miles in several hours carrying all their gear, provide their own leaders, bait their own hooks, and unhook fish. So you need to be able to do all these things to attend this workshop. So here's a list of topics I will cover in the video. I'll talk about safety, being legal, go over tactics, how to keep catch, and then we'll summarize. So the first topic is really about, do you even go out? And then the following topics are, what do I need to do when I go out? In my opinion, ocean fishing is probably the most dangerous fishing compared to all the other fishing I've done, and mainly because of the power of the waves in the ocean. So watch these next two videos and see how important it is to stay safe.
Folks down playing on the beach here. Uh-oh, I have time to go here. Get out of the way! Go! Whoa, that was scary. That's a big snooker wave. My God, that's huge. I just got out of the way. Would have taken anybody in its path. Look at that. Holy, you know what? Everybody made it out.
So here's how I evaluate whether it's safe to go out or not. First, it helps to know what type of beach you're going to, whether it's a beach with a steep slope or a beach with a shallow slope. And you can see for the same water line. The steep slope beach, you can actually be above the water line, whereas a shallow slope beach, you'll still be in the water. So on high energy days on a shallow slope beach, you have to be very careful because the waves come way up the shore and you might get knocked over. So I always look at swell energy first, and it's a measure of how hard the wave hits you. So a 500 energy and less day is relatively safe, and you can usually stand in water calf to knee deep. When it's above 500 to 1,000, you need to be careful, and you'll be standing on sand many times, especially when it's closer to 1,000. And when it's 1,000 to 2,500, you need to be very careful because these are dangerous surf conditions and it's very easy to go down if you're not careful. So you'll be standing on beach almost all the time and you're often 20 yards away from the edge of the waves. And over 2,500, it's too dangerous to go out and try and catch. So if you want to get some casting practice in, it's a good day to go, but otherwise, you're probably not going to catch much. So the higher the energy, the further up the beach you have to stand, and the further up the beach you have to stand, the further you have to cast to get to deep water. So on high energy days, you're going to be fishing in very shallow water. And it also depends on the structure of the beach, as I said. And again, shallow sloping beaches are much more dangerous. And you can use a running cast, which helps to get you more distance. So basically what you do is you time the waves, you run down, you cast, leave your bail open, run back, and get back up the beach. So it gives you about another 10, 15, maybe 20 yards of distance. So it does help. But the big thing is don't forget you have to account for the infrequent big waves. Not every wave comes in the same force. Every once in a while, there'll be big waves, and those are the ones you got to be careful of. So I always start ankle deep, and take a couple of swells to see how bad it is, in terms of how bad the force is. So you always want to face the ocean and watch about 3 to 5 waves out. And if you see a big swell coming, retreat if you think it is one. Because if you don't retreat and it is a big swell and you don't back up, you're gonna get hit and go down. But if you do retreat and you're wrong, and the wave is not as bad as you thought it was, well, you still get to cast again and you're still dry.
So here's an example of how to use an app to determine the ocean conditions when you want to go. This is an app called Surfforcast.com, and it's the first app I always go to when I decide to go surf fishing. If you look in the red box, there's two red circles. On the left, you'll see a 4, which means these are 4-foot swells, and on the right, you'll see 7.5, which means 7.5 swells. In the green circles below them, you'll see the period. So you'll see 18 for 4-foot swells and 9 for 7.5-foot swells, which means the 7.5-foot swells are coming in as twice as fast. But what I'm mainly focusing on is this red box, which is energy, which equates to the power of the swells coming in. So you can see the 4-foot swells at an 18-second period has a power of 959. At the 7.5-foot swells with a 9-second period, you see it's 863 power. So even though the 7.5-foot swells are almost twice as high as the 4-foot swells and are coming in twice as fast, the energy is lower. So if I had to choose between the two, I'd actually go at the 7.5-foot and 9-second swell. But in either case, I wouldn't go in both cases because it's over 500. The other thing I look at on this app is the wind speed. So again, under 10 miles per hour is more comfortable, and it shows you the wind direction and what it's coming from. So again, if the wind is coming from the west and in your face, it's going to be more unpleasant than if the wind is to your back. The final thing this app will give you is the high tide and low tide times and depth. But what I found is that this app is not as accurate as other apps that I use. But is the first app I come to, and then I go to 2 or 3 other apps to confirm the weather conditions.
So waders are not necessarily required, but they're highly recommended because they keep you warm, and when you get wet and the wind's blowing, it gets kind of cold. But there's two kinds of waders. There's boots, which are part of the waders, and then there's stocking waders where you need footwear. But regardless of either wader that you use, always use a waist belt. So my waders actually have a chest ring too, so I get 2 layers of protection. So once I determine it's safe to go out, then I look at the weather for how pleasant it's going to be when I go out. So the first factor I look at is wind. And wind coming from the west is actually the worst because it's going right into your face. So my limit is usually a 10 mile per hour wind. It's uncomfortable, but if it's coming from the east, then it's going into your back. And if you got a good windbreaker, it's not too bad. But it's coming into your face. Not only are you getting the breeze or the wind in your face all the time, but you're casting into the wind. And I usually don't go out when it's 15 mile per hour wind. And I've often quit very shortly after the wind picks up. But it's very unpleasant with high wind. And then, and then you look at the level of rain, and I combine it with the wind. If it's just rainy and there's no wind, I can usually deal with that, especially if it's a sprinkle. But if it's a downpour, it's a lot more unpleasant. And if it's a driving rain with the wind from the west, that's the worst combination because the rain's coming directly into your face, and generally it starts creeping down your hood and into your clothes. And then finally, I look at temperature to determine what type of clothing to wear. I generally don't go out below 40 degrees anymore because my fingers don't work, but it's really up to you what you can bear. But if you've got quality rain and wind gear and gloves, it makes a huge difference on what you can tolerate.
So the first thing you need to do before you even take a step into the ocean is make sure you're legal. So learn all the rules and regulations at the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife website. We call them ODFW. So don't go by what people tell you. Use the ODFW website to verify what's legal and not legal. The regulations can change annually, and there are some seasonal changes, so stay up to date on all changes. Know what licenses and tags are needed for wherever you fish and what species you're fishing for. Make sure you're carrying a lure license at all times. I usually carry a hard copy, but you can carry an electronic copy. Separate licenses are needed for different harvesting, for example, if you're crabbing and clamming. Know your saltwater restrictions, such as number of rods and number of hooks, and other equipment limitations. Also know catch restrictions such as size and number. You also need to learn about marine protected areas, or MPAs. These are certain coastal areas which are protected and have harvest restrictions. There's multiple MPAs along the coast, so check all of them before you go. There are also different boat versus shore limitations, so do your research. And there's an occasional local beach closures for various reasons, so check that out. On the right-hand side, you can see what an example of an MPA looks like. And if you go to the ODFW website, you'll find them all. The other thing is make sure you park legally and ensure you know what fees are required for any day use and or parking when using state beaches or parks to avoid tickets and fines. Follow all laws and regulations, please.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to fish for perch, and there's really no one way to perch. Just like any other fishing, it's all personal preference. So equipment, bait, and tackle to use, it depends on your budget as well as how many times you go. If you only go once or twice a year, I wouldn't spend a lot of money. But I can tell you that perch are not line shy, and if the perch are biting, you can use just about any gear and you'll catch them. But most anglers use a high-low rig with 2 to 3 hooks. And if the perch are biting, the bite window can be over in 15 minutes, so try not to leave the water. It can be like someone turned a light switch off and all of a sudden the fish quit biting and you get nothing. But also, when action is hot, the bite window can last for over 2 hours with fish and bite on every cast, and those are really amazing days. They're not very often, but they do happen. It's really a matter of luck on the day you go. And budget is the main factor, as I was saying, as you don't want to spend a lot of money if you don't go very often. But, if you like expensive toys like me, and I go like 50 times a year, I'm willing to spend a little bit more money on my rig. The other thing that people ask is, what's the best tide to catch at? So I've caught at all kinds of tides, high, low, incoming, outgoing, and it just depends on the day and what beach you're at. But many prefer incoming high tide 1 hour before or 1 hour after. And the beach structure changes every week and sometimes daily. So the perch roam around looking for the beach structure that gives them a home and it gives them food. So they keep moving around. So you just never know where they're going to be. So that's why I believe there's no such thing as a secret spot in perch fishing, because I've had monster days one day, gone back the very next day under the same conditions and almost got skunked. So it's not like the perch stay in one place all the time. So the three most important things when perching, in my opinion, are you got to learn how to read the waves in the beach to try and locate the fish. So you got to move around to find the fish. And this is a type of fishing where you don't throw bait in the water and just wait. You got to go find them. And you want to keep moving if you don't find the fish. So you got to move after every 2 casts or 3 casts with no action. So perch school, so when fishing with others, it helps locate the fish because you cover more water. And then if someone does find a fish, then you want to crowd together, but only if you know the people, because if you don't know the people, they may get upset you're crowding them. But I always invite anglers to fish with me, elbow to elbow, once I find the fish. So try different baits, but real bait is the best and usually outfishes artificial bait, and I'll show you the different types of real bait. So you will greatly increase your chances of catching using real bait versus artificial bait. The reason I don't use real bait is because even if you don't get bites, You're having to rebait frequently, like every 3 to 5 casts, depending how hard you cast, and you have to use stretchy string, but it does increase your chances of catching and getting action. So the most successful bait, in my opinion, is what they call sand shrimp or ghost shrimp. But how you can tell these shrimp is that they have one big claw and one small claw. Another popular bait are mole crabs, and then followed by that are clams and mussels. And it's better to use stretchy string, and I'll show you a demo in a second, but it'll help keep your bait on a lot longer. I've seen people use store shrimp as well, but it doesn't seem to be as effective as real live baits as above.
Back of the head right here where it's kind of harder, and then just move it up, then just put it through the tail again, just for another thing for it to hold on to. Then I kind of position it on there the way I want it to be. Then take your stretchy string, start wrapping it on there. Go like up and down, try to do kind of cover as much ground as you can so it'll hold in that position. Just keep doing it, and that's probably good. You want to make sure your hook is still exposed, which we've got there, and that will hopefully get us a fish.
So if you want to keep fish, make sure you have a way to keep them, and then make sure you have a way to get them back home. A catch bag is the best option because you don't leave the water. If your bite window is only 15 minutes and you spend 5 minutes going up and down the beach, you're going to probably lose a lot more fish. You can use a bucket if you want, but you got to keep moving it as you walk along. And if you're moving every 2 or 3 casts, you got to keep going up the beach and moving the bucket. So regardless of what method you use, bleed the fish and get it on ice as fast as possible. So here's why you want to bleed your fish. Here's a picture of 2 perch fillets. The one on the left has not been bled, and you can see how much red it is, and the red, I can tell you that it actually degrades the meat. And the one on the right is one that's been bled, and you can see how white and how higher the quality of the meat is. So that's the reason why you want to bleed your fish. So there's 3 ways that people like to eat perch. My preference also is the first one, which is fry fillets, and I use the air fryer. But basically, you bread them and then you use them in either fish tacos or just eat the fillets plain. You can even have them in fish sandwiches. The other way is to fry fish whole, and you scale and gut them and then air fry or pan fry in oil. And then lastly, some people will steam fillets or whole fish, but it's really up to you. Some also do ceviche as well. But whatever method you use, make sure you use a method to eliminate bacterial and parasite danger. I've actually eaten perch with worms in them, so I'm not worried about it because I cooked them properly.
Okay, so we're gonna bleed the fish now. So here's what I do: is I have my catch bag that I have, and I attach scissors to it with braid line. And now I'm gonna euthanize it before we bleed it. Here, why don't you let me do it, man? That way you don't have to worry about your rod. Okay. I usually pick the fish up. Measure it first, and it is 10.5 incher. Okay, so some people just rip the gills out, but I like to kill the fish before I cut the gills. So what I usually do is I just go inside here. And then, so that's what I usually do. Yeah, you don't have to. I'm trying to be more humane. And then you just cut the gills. You can rip them out if you want. I hate getting my fingers in there though. No, I gotta work on my scissors. Okay, that's all you do, man. Usually you want to rinse it before you throw it in the bag. So Now you gotta, so now when you go home, before you go home, or as soon as you can, even if you leave here, you want to get some ice, put it on ice.
So, in summary, make sure you know when it's safe to go out, how to be legal when you go out, and then these are the top 3 things to help you increase your chances of catching. Learn to read the waves and beach structure. Look for dark green successive crashing waves. I'm always looking up and down the beaches I'm fishing because it changes by the minute, to be honest with you. So, and the next thing is make sure you keep moving to find the fish. If you don't have any bites in 2 or 3 casts, then keep moving, either left or right, but again, look for the crashing waves. And finally, your best chances of catching are using real bait versus plastic baits, or use a combination using a high-low rig that has 3 hooks. That way you can give them a choice of baits, and I have found that certain baits work better on different days. It just depends. So that'll help you increase your chances.